Listen carefully. A few months after my father's death, I was still suffering from a great sense of loss. It was during my final year in high school that I started having pains in my stomach. The X-rays showed ulcers. I was hospitalized twice that year. Shortly after entering college, Donna, my high school girlfriend, broke up with me. Also, my uncle, who had become like a new father to me, committed suicide. I had lost all hope and thought of suicide too. With my mother's advice, I checked into a mental hospital. My 2-week stay there was the turning point in my life. The people who helped me recover the most were not doctors, but my family, friends, and roommate Rudy. Rudy had had 3 wives and 15 jobs. His life was full of failure and despair. People often came to visit me, but no one came to see Rudy. Little did I imagine that a person could experience such deep loneliness. My pain seemed to be nothing compared to his. It was then that I realized I had been surrounded by love, but hadn't fully opened my heart to receive it. It was a new personal truth for me. Listen carefully. After leaving the hospital, I knew I wanted to enter a profession that helped people. I decided on a career in medicine. After 3 years of pre-med studies, in 1967, I entered the Medical College of Virginia. It was my training in medical school that brought me face to face with the American medical system. The doctors told us to focus on the physical condition of our patients. I thought it important that we also get to know the personality and lifestyle of each patient well. I like to have friendly talks with my patients, and I often joked with them. Some doctors criticized me for this. They said we should keep a professional distance between ourselves and our patients. Because of this, there was little joy in the classrooms or the hospital. I wanted to change the system. Medical care becoming more like a business was another big problem. Many doctors ask patients to take expensive medical tests, which are often unnecessary, or prescribe many kinds of medicines. This has caused a huge increase in the cost of health insurance, which more than 30 million Americans cannot afford now. Listen carefully. The healthcare system is in a crisis. Costs are out of control, and the doctor-patient relationship is in serious trouble. It is doubtful whether this situation will get better in the future. I realized these problems were closely related with each other. Seldom have I heard that sharing emotions, an essential part of good medical care, is as important as profit. Experiences during my senior year made me understand those problems more deeply, which strongly affected my future. As part of my training, I chose to work at a free clinic for poor people. It was the chance I had been waiting for. I was now able to practice medicine my way with friendship and humor. One day, I wore a red rubber nose to work. To my delight, close friendships and trust developed more easily with my patients. I realized this was the kind of atmosphere in which I wanted to work, helping others without thinking of profit as the main goal. I realized that if I had my own ideas about improving health care, I would have to carry them out myself. Listen carefully. After graduating in 1971, a small group of friends and I set up our own clinic in a small house in Arlington, Virginia. For the next several years, our clinic moved many times. Those first years were an experiment for us all. When we saw a patient, we would spend hours learning about his or her family, friends, job, and hobbies. Never did we ask to be paid for our services. In 1979, we coined the name Gesundheit Institut, which means good health in German. The next year, we bought 310 acres in the beautiful countryside of West Virginia. Here, our dream could truly become a reality. We could create a happy, fun-filled, and loving community. We thought it natural that our home-style hospital and health center be free and open to anyone from anywhere. Only in this setting could patients easily understand our philosophy. Good health is more than being free of illness. It is about nutrition, exercise, hobbies, nature, wonder, creativity, service, and peace. We cannot separate the health of the individual from the health of the family, the community, and the world. In a word, health is based on happiness.
Listen carefully. Christmas holiday on a hot sandy beach. Can you imagine anything better? In the morning on December 26th, there were about 100 people soaking in the sunshine. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. I was lying down, feeling an irritating trickle of sweat running under the strap of my swimsuit. Then the wind suddenly shifted. I noticed something else. The beach had suddenly become very quiet. People had been talking, but now they'd stopped. My little brother Jack had been chatting merrily away to an empty seashell, but even he went silent. I shaded my eyes and followed his open-mouthed gaze out over the water. At first, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I thought our beach had disappeared. Then I realized that the beach was just bigger than before. It was 10 times the size it had been. The sea was leaving the shore. It was incredible to watch. The water retreated, rushing backwards amazingly fast towards the horizon. For a moment, no one on the beach said a word. We were all awestruck. Dozens of sea creatures were now exposed on the beach. Tropical fish flopped around, gasping for air. Crabs and shellfish scuttled up and down the sand, looking for a place to hide. Listen carefully. Everyone was spellbound by the retreating waters. Mom joined several other adults, taking a few steps down the wet, glistening sand. No one seemed to be particularly worried. It was then that I remembered a documentary I'd seen showing some shaky film footage of a tsunami that had hit Papua New Guinea a few years back. It had started just like this, the sea retreating really fast. For a few moments, I was too dazed by how similar this was to the disaster in the film. Then I found my voice and rasped, "Tsunami! Tsunami!" Jack looked at me and laughed, repeating the strange word. Dad muttered, "What?" But he wasn't listening. Mum was too far down the beach to hear me. I stood up and yelled out to Mum to come back. "What's the matter?" she asked, shielding her eyes, still gazing out to sea. "We have to get off the beach," I shouted. "It's a tsunami." She shook her head, staring at Dad as if he would understand what I was freaking out about. He shrugged, embarrassed. "We have to get away," I said as loudly as possible. All the adults within earshot frowned or glanced sheepishly at each other, expecting one of them to explain what the mad girl on the beach was so upset about. Listen carefully. The sea is rising. We've got to get away from the shore. I was screaming at the top of my voice by now. Still, no one moved. None of the adults believed I could know something they did not. I glanced out to sea and pointed at the distant wave approaching the beach. No one understood the Japanese word tsunami. tidal wave, I rasped. Tidal wave! Tidal wave! And this time they understood. They knew what tidal wave meant. At the same moment, a yacht way out at sea was tipped over, suddenly, violently. It looked as if the entire sea was coming out of the water. Most people were still rooted to the spot, but not Mum. She said one word. I'll never forget the way she said it. It came out like a scream, and for a moment I froze. Run! Holding Jack tight against her shoulder, she grabbed my wrist, and we sprinted from the beach. Behind us, Dad shouted warnings to those nearby, but the message wasn't getting through. Instead of running for their lives, people started slowly packing up, putting away napkins, towels, finishing their drinks. We rushed back to the pool of the hotel, and Dad breathlessly explained to the staff what was going to happen. And the staff, knowing that the wave might kill them, ran out to the beach and called out as loudly as they could, telling everyone to get back to the hotel. Listen carefully. The first wave struck the beach only seconds after the last person made it to the hotel. I can't begin to describe to you how terrifying the wave was to watch. Not because it was so big, it was only about twice Jack's height, but because it was so fast. One moment there was this wall of water frothing and bubbling out at sea. The next, the wave hit the beach. The boom from it was incredible, like an exploding bomb. Later I discovered the wave struck the shore at around 800 miles per hour, faster than a jet aircraft. As soon as we saw what happened to the beach, we knew anyone left out there would have been killed. Heavy tables, yanked from the sand, crashed into the building. Trees, not little bushes, but huge, mature palm trees, were thrown into the hotel pools. Cars and vans were picked up and carried inland. The wave flowed inland, carrying massive rocks and trees and boats for over a mile. Later, we discovered that many local residents living outside the hotel survived the first wave, only to be pulled out to sea as the wave retreated, unable to find anything to hold on to save themselves. We watched the first wave surge inland. Then it suddenly retreated again, almost as fast as it had come in, withdrawing like an animal back out to sea. Listen carefully. The second wave was almost as fast as the first wave as it rushed towards us, but much bigger, the height of a house. What could we do? Nothing. We held on to each other and prayed the building would not collapse. There were huge blasts as the wave smashed into the walls and flowed around them. Then the second wave retreated, and we breathed a sigh of relief. But it still wasn't over. For the next 2.5 hours, waves bigger than the first one continued to crash around us. Below us, as far as the eye could see, the whole world had been completely flattened. All the buildings except for our hotel were gone. Apart from a few steel girders or telephone poles, almost nothing was still standing. Every tree, every bush, every vehicle, every single home lay in ruins. Afterwards, for a while some of the adults called me the Christmas Angel. But I hope you can now understand why I never liked that name. I wasn't an angel. I just happened to know a piece of information that helped save some lives. If you had known, you'd have done the same as me. When I arrived back home, I realized how many in Thailand had died that day. A lot of young children died because they were not strong enough to hold on to anything when the wave struck. But many older children and parents also died too, needlessly. They could have saved themselves, but they died trying to save younger children. This story is for all those angels.